Kris Krohn rubs shoulders with some high-profile individuals. There are a number of people that have hired Kris to mentor them directly, and recently Kris took a whole group of people down to Puerto Vallarta in Mexico, and he trained with them. And I don't know about you, but when I hear about this and that people are paying thousands, $25 to $100 to $250,000 for this type of mentoring, I'm often left wondering, what could Kris Krohn possibly teach them that would help them get to the next level? Well, the good news is we're going to get a sneak peek here. We filmed a segment of Kris in Mexico teaching these individuals, and he's teaching them the most important thing that they are going to need to take their business, take their marriage, take their bodies to that next level. And we're going to dive in and take a look at it. It's going to be great.
Important part of your character to develop, and could only develop one. What do you think it should be?
Integrity. Kindness.
So you say integrity. How are you defining that?
Doing what you say you're going to do.
Okay, doing what you say you're going to do. Colin says kindness.
Treating everyone
like people instead of objects. What else? If you could only develop one core character as the most important.
Mine was integrity, but I see it differently. In Spanish, integral means whole. It means complete.
So
that's how I see that.
So what does that mean? How do you know if you're whole?
Good question.
Okay, you let me know when you figure it out. Because I'm not a fan of things I can't measure. I have to have math and a process behind it, or else it is potpourri. So put some math behind that. What else? What character trait? If you had to have, of all your character traits, if one had to be core, what would it be? Throw one in the ring.
I'd say grit.
Grit, meaning?
Your ability to withstand hardship, challenge.
So resiliency. Resiliency, grit. The ability to stay standing. Stay in the game.
Intent is a big piece.
What is it?
Intent.
Intention. Meaning?
What you are meaning to do.
What you're meaning to do?
Purpose.
So the meaning behind any action. Okay? What else?
I think being connected to the truth, like this compass within yourself and being connected to it.
So making sure that you're never defying the truth within.
I think just being connected to it.
Okay?
You can defy it or not, but like knowing it. So awareness maybe?
Okay. Awareness. What else? Let's throw a couple more in the ring. Everyone should have one if it hasn't been said. Katie, what would you throw in?
Kindness. I mean, that was
So you like kindness. Is there any other votes for kindness? Okay. Grit, resiliency, we've heard that. Who else has something new that hasn't been said?
Mine would be discipline, but it goes along the same lines of it's like grit,
Yeah, but discipline is more like a stick witness, right?
Yeah, like something happens.
Stay in the game when something nasty happens is different than the ability to consistently do something regularly.
Yeah, like put something as your goal and then always achieve it.
Okay. Discipline. Any other thoughts?
First one that came to my mind is patience, but not just kind of goes, I think, with resilience in that way, like patience to withstand and get to where you need to be, patience in the process of getting there.
Yeah, because, by the way, if you're discontent, you can sabotage. You can sabotage. You're either a long player or a short player, and short players only win if they're good at making short wins. So patience to hang out for something that's going to take a little bit more to develop. Got it? Anyone else? Any other ideas?
when I think of kindness though, I think of kindness with myself.
Okay, how you treat you.
Yeah.
I still love myself.
My baby had on a I am loved shirt this morning and I was like, I need that shirt.
Yes. Okay. By the way, is there a right and a wrong answer to what we're talking about right here? The reality is, who has to find their path in life? You have to find yours. But since I'm here, I am going to share with you, for me, what my number one is. And by the way, I agree with everything that's been said. But you can't make everything equal. There's going to be some things that are more important than others. Any guesses what my number one is?
Stillness.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Did any of us get it right?
Mine is integrity.
Ha!
You're playing the right and wrong game again.
But I was right, so it doesn't matter.
All right. So I want to share integrity and why. Integrity is not about honoring truth with a capital T. It's honoring what you perceive as truth. It's being true to yourself. And it has a mathematical equation to it. And there's a reason why I'm going to bring this up for a moment. Because when I meet people that are struggling to have the level of success or growth in their life, I can almost always pinpoint it to integrity. Who here is familiar with batting average? What's a batting average? What is that math? It's a score out of what?
1,000.
It's a score out of 1,000. And it means that if a batter gets up to bat, and if they had a 1,000 out of 1,000 batting average, what would that mean?
Perfect.
That would mean that if they're up to bat 10 times, they're going to hit the ball how many times? 10 times. Now, when it comes to baseball, what is a good batting average?
300.
Strait.
High twos, low threes, 300. That means that if they're up to bat, they're going to hit the ball how many times? 3 for every 10 attempts. We consider that good. That means that they are going to strike out 2 out of 3 times. That's good in baseball. We have a saying in my company. Marianne knows what it is. What is the saying? It's a number.
Oh, 1,000 to 1,000 is the only acceptable weight.
Yeah. So I judge a person's integrity. I judge my integrity on one thing. My batting average out of 1,000. Meaning, if I give myself 10 tasks, and I do 9 of the 10 tasks, what's my batting average?
900.
900. For just a moment, I want you to reflect. The last 10 tasks that you gave yourself, that you had a deadline for, this is self-reflection, what was your integrity score? Out of the 10 things you committed to do, how many of them on average will get done?
Is there time frame attached to this?
I'm just going to have you go with your gut on this. Procrastination, by the way, is a failure in integrity. Right? Pushing something off. That means you didn't do it. Well, I'm intending to. Good, but you didn't. So if you say, I will do 10 tasks, and this, set yourself free on this one. Give yourself the honest number, not the hopeful, not the number that I would like to be reflected on me, but like the actual number. Because integrity is connected to trust. And when someone has low integrity, they tend to have trust problems with themselves, and then they project their trust problems on others, and then they can't trust people. Meanwhile, it's just because they struggle to do what they say. So think about simple things like, I'm going to be there at 10 o'clock. And by the way, if I show up at 10:05, let me ask you, would you say that's 1,000? I'll call you in 5 minutes, but I actually called you at 3 in the afternoon. Is that integrity? So for your math, I want you to pretend that there is zero flexibility and flow in this math. It is rigid. It is Oracle. It is German. To the second. Give yourself a batting average in integrity. Raise your hand if you have a score. Gut score on what you think it probably is. And it would probably hold up true if we could, if you would backtrack and look, you know what it is. All right, let's hear some scores. No shame, no judgment, just fun.
650.
650. 2/3 of the time you're going to do what you say you're going to do. Who else? 750. Okay.
500.
500. 50-50.
900.
900? 800? 800? 850?
I don't know.
No, it doesn't matter. No one's judging you.
300.
300? Huh? 800? 400? Yeah, you. 500? Marianne? 900?
Like 200 when it comes to the laundry.
That was generous. That was very generous. That was very generous. She claimed 200 on laundry.
There's no reason to be doing your own laundry.
950.
950. All right. Now let's define what good integrity is. You're hiring an employee. This employee is going to cost you, this is not a $40,000 a year employee. This is a CEO. And this person's net pay, salary plus bonuses, et cetera, in your organization, let's just say that it is a 6-figure salary. And that's meaningful. It's literally, oh my gosh, I am paying this money to a human being. You're interviewing the CEO, and you ask him, you explain the batting average, and you explain it, and they say, you know, my batting average is, and they say your number. Now you're considering, how important is this hire in your whole company, by the way? How important? Hello? How important is hiring a CEO? Out of all employees, this is the what? This is the most important hire. Okay? So by the way, whatever failings you hire the CEO with, I promise you, they will hire people with similar failings. Do you know that A players hire A players and B players hire C players? Did you know this? Okay, so you're about to hire the most important person in your company, and they tell you, in all honesty, my batting average on integrity is your number. Now just reflect for a moment on it, and I want you to ask, how do you feel about it? You're about to outsource your livelihood, your source of income, success, culture, problem solving, stick-with-itness, resilience to this individual who's going to be in charge of a team that's going to expand and grow. How do you feel?
Hell no.
So that's 100% no for you.
Yeah.
Okay. What else? What's your honest reflection?
Hire him.
You'd hire him.
I trust him because he didn't give himself a 10 actually. He's got room to grow. I think every person has room to grow.
Okay. Is that why you gave yourself a 950? What do you think your real number is?
11.
Huh?
11.
Yeah, don't lie, tell the truth. What's your real number?
It's 11.
Okay. So, Aubrey, would you hire him?
No.
Because?
Well, first of all, because I want someone who's better than I am.
How many of you agree with that, by the way? This is smart. You should feel very comfortable. You should be looking for people that have many times your ability. Insecure people, by the way, look to hire people who are what? Who are lower than them. And that right there is one of the number one mistakes. By the way, if you do that, if you make that mistake, will you trust this person? You will not trust this person. And then when they prove you right and you have to let go of them, then you'll reinforce what belief? I can't get good help. It's not out there. It's not out there. But the denominator is the problem. Any other reflection on that? How would you handle that, hiring that person? If you wouldn't hire, Josh, would you hire 800?
So I specifically was looking at it through the lens of my family and my relationship with my kids.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't think I want to accept anything less than 1,000 for
Sonny, as your father, I will be there for you 4 out of 5 times.
She's actually the one I specifically thought of. I told her I was going to get her a birthday present. Birthday was in August. I just ordered it right before we left.
And we've been there. We've all been there. By the way, batting 1,000, there's a word for that. What's the word if you were to bat 1,000? Perfect. This is a word that we as humans are scared of. We spend more times talking ourselves either out of the possibility of being perfect or shaming ourselves to pieces if we attempt it and fail at it. And so it's a very vulnerable word. My personal belief is that we should attempt to be perfect in some things. And there's only a few things that I'm attempting to be perfect at. That's actually not true. Let me just be totally honest here. I am dang near perfect at honoring my gym time in the mornings, my power hours. I am probably a 990 out of 1,000 on doing that. When it comes to following the meal plan that my dietitians and experts give me, I'm probably a 750, maybe 800. I'm somewhere in that range. When it comes to my employees, if they are any less than a 900, I can't stop thinking about anything other than firing them. You ever drop a ball and it costs you 100 grand? That's not 100. This is a table, it's not a ball.
That was too perfect.
That looks like that was.
Not perfect.
Yeah.
Just say that.
Yeah. So one of the things that I want to challenge you to do is, in striving for perfection, if you're currently not at an 8 or 900, it's going to be really hard to demand perfection, but there's some things that you want to strive for perfection in. And the reason why is because yesterday we were talking about the fact that, do you want to define your life by, well, I could never figure out the health thing or the relationship thing or the money thing? Like, when you are on your deathbed looking back at your life, do you want to say that you obsessed, your bandwidth was utilized figuring out one of those 3 areas? Does anyone here want that? That is how you define humanity as a whole. I've just decided that whatever I am going to define my life as, I am meant to outgrow my personal problems with health, my personal problems with money, and my personal problems with relationships. Like, Evelyn, you get to figure out every day you need a ritual for kicking the trash out of depression, every sad thought, because there's way too much on the line. And if you're a 400 on integrity, then that right there is what means that, well, it's what Jorge was saying. I tripped, and then I recommitted, and then I tripped and I recommitted. You're going to keep on tripping until you fix your integrity. It's not about fixing depression. It's about honoring a commitment that you make. Does that make sense? So I find that the people, like when I meet and spend time with, these days I'm spending a lot of time with very, very, very successful people, and I've noticed that there's something that they really share in common with each other. They are 900 or higher. If they say it, it's done. By the way, when they're not 1,000, they have an SOP for how to communicate with you that something isn't going to be done by the deadline. They tell you not at the point of deadline, they'll tell you in advance, I'm working on this project. I came into this extenuating circumstance. I believe I'm going to need more time, or the data has shown that the outcome that we're going for is not realistic, and I'd like to adjust expectation. So perfection does not mean that you always do what you say. It means that in the process of attempting to do what you say, you readjust and realign your expectations with the people that you are that you have stewardship with. And that's okay. Does that make sense? So I wanted to give you, I would love for you to walk away from this retreat and just thinking about, what can I do to add 200 points to my batting average? What can I do to add 200 points? How can I go from 4 to 6, right? And I still want you to push for 1,000, but honestly, we're here for growth, and growth is a journey, and it's something that takes time. And my personal belief is that integrity connects every outcome that you're trying to create in life. How many of you see what I'm talking about? If you can't trust yourself because your integrity is low, tell me how you're supposed to run an organization of other people that you trust. If you can't trust yourself because your integrity is less than 800, then how are you ever really going to learn to trust other people? I think it'll be very, very, very challenging. So part of your personal journey, I believe for every one of us that's here in this room, we need to strive and have a way to work on our integrity until it's 1,000. Now, by the way, there's a way that Janae can get to 1,000 really quickly. There's a way that Evelyn can get to 1,000 really quickly. Do you know what will help them get to 1,000 way quicker? Do you know what will help you go from 650 to 900 really quickly?
What?
There's a secret. There's a really important secret. Who knows the secret to rapidly increasing your personal integrity score?
Sleep longer.
No? Tried that for 2 years.
Breakthrough.
You could say it's breakthrough, but it's not breakthrough. It's simpler than this.
It's like micro commitment.
Just do what you say you're gonna do.
It could be just to do what you say you're going to do, but this is why they fail. It's hard sometimes. Some people don't have that grit and resilience to stick with it when it gets hard on a hard day. There's something easier than that. You could say it's consequences. No, I'm going to make it hurt extra hard. It's even easier than that. It's even easier.
Don't ever say you're going to do anything. Never commit.
No, you're close though. You're getting really close.
I was gonna say lower your standards.
No, don't lower your standards. No.
Lower the.
No is a complete sentence.
Thank you. You only say yes to things that are real yeses. What you're giving are what's called false yeses. How many of you ever committed to something and in your heart wasn't in it and you knew it and you're like, well, I'm probably going to miss that one, but I tolerate that because I have a certain integrity score that doesn't fly? How many of you know sometimes you make a decision and you already know that a week later when someone's going to ask whether it was done, you already know the answer is going to be no? How many of you know what I'm talking about? It's because you gave what's called a false yes. You did the American way. I said yes when I felt no. Winning is saying yes to the right things, and it is saying no to the right things. And if your integrity score is in 1,000, it likely means that you are saying yes to no's. So what's the real correction then? What's the real problem? Is it your integrity? Or is it the fact that you're not quite honest with yourself? And you live in a world where it's okay to commit to things that in your heart you know you probably won't do. Integrity really is a journey of honesty. If you want to be at 1,000, the quickest way for you to get there is to become mindful of your yeses and nos, and then become a person that says, if I say yes, it is as good as done. If I say no, it's because I am honoring myself.
Can I ask you a question on this? So, I think there's a clear distinction between when you tell somebody to do something, it becomes like, it's almost like an unsigned agreement. Yes, I'm going to, by the end of the day, I'm going to text 5 people. Like, that's an unsigned agreement that I set out loud. That makes sense to me. What about, and so we talk about having integrity with ourselves, like what are the things that we have thoughts in our heads that, we get their thoughts and they're just like, oh, like, maybe I should, like, so let's use that same example, you know, I should really text 5 people today. Who I want to reconnect with. Like, when does that become a thought versus an agreement with yourself that challenges your integrity?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. And what I want to do is I want to talk about the journey of yes to no to yes. Most people, you realize that you were raised in an environment of no. You were raised in an environment. Right now, you want, Vin and Katrina, you want the best for your sweet little baby boy. But you will say no to him thousands of times while he's a teenager. Starting right now, you'll say, don't touch the fire. You'll say it with intensity. You won't say, oh, look at that, he's gonna touch the fire. Don't do that. You're gonna scream, no. He runs into the street, no. There will be a lot of energy. There will be, all right, on cue. There will be an intense amount of no that a good mindful parent says to a child. Don't jump off the roof, right? So, but at some point the child becomes an adult. And when the child becomes an adult, What happens when an adult, a young adult, is still trapped in no land? No, don't, can't, shouldn't, mustn't. What happens to that child? How do they grow up as an adult when all they've really heard is, the parents are like, the sky's the limit, just go for it, we believe in you, you can do it. No, 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 it's like a machine gun. So now you have this young adult. What will happen to this young adult living in a mental mindset of no? They will be governed by fear, even though you were loving parents. What else? What happens when you say no to life? What happens to opportunities? Do they expand or diminish? So all of a sudden, I mean, you may know this from your own journey. How many of you felt there was a time in your life when your opportunities were very, very limited? How many of you know what I'm talking about? You've been operating, Evelyn, very much in a world of no. And the world seems so small, and when it's really small, life becomes selfish, it becomes egotistical, it becomes about you, it's you versus the world. There's only one way to bring abundance into your life. You have to learn to say what?
No.
You have to learn to say yes. And by the way, if you start saying yes to all opportunities, what will then happen? There's two things that will happen. When you guys come to my events, when you bring people to my event, in February we're going to have an event, we're going to have hundreds of people there, and how much yes energy is going to be in the room?
All the yes energy.
All the yes energy is going to be in the room, because I'm assuming that most of the room is living in a world of no. And when they say, wow, that was such a life-changing event, your buddy that came, his name was John? How was that event for him? Was it life-changing? All I did was take a really good guy who's been living in a no world, and I gave him full immersion for many days in a yes world. And he's not used to that. He's not used to all of this yes energy. So all of a sudden he starts saying yes. He starts saying yes to opportunities that come along. And when he says yes, there will be two things introduced into his world that were never there before with no energy. What will be introduced? Positive outcome and negative outcome. Some of the yeses will hurt, but in a yes state also comes learning. In a no state, there's no learning. In a yes world, things will go well or bad, but either way, you have the opportunity to learn. So yes energy usually means more money and more problems. And I call it the chaos of abundance, because if you say yes enough, you will have so much opportunity, and your integrity will go down, because you can't manage it all. It's chaos. So then you learn about prioritizing and the fact that the world is filled with good opportunities and horrible ones in hindsight when you say yes to everything. The only way to minimize the chaos is to learn how to say what? No. But not as an automatic response to life as a child. We are now learning to offer responsible no's. This is when your integrity can hit 1,000. Your job, your journey is to get to a 1,000 again. And you do that by now offering the right yeses and the right nos. You realize that there's a chaos of abundance if you give too many yeses. So you have to develop standards. What's the word? Standards. What will help you keep your integrity is having the right yeses and the right nos. And the only way to know what to say yes to and the only way to know what to say no to is to have standards. Janae might go out and start dating some dudes. She needs to have standards. Last night she shared some of her standards of what's important to her. If Janae might be looking for a CEO right now, Janae has to have standards. If her standards aren't right, she will learn lessons as she gets some of what she wants and some of what she doesn't want, right? Josh wants to expand his solar empire into a multi-billion-dollar company. So he is raising and elevating his standards, but if he says yes to everything, then he'll actually experience acceleration and deceleration. He'll experience abundance and distraction. He'll have some things go well, he'll have some things go wrong. Vin and Katrina are working on a second business. If it is so different than their dental business, then they can only take the lessons from a successful, outsourced, privatized dentist business, and whatever lessons they can extract there to the new business will be helpful, but everything else that they don't understand about their new industry is learning curve. And they should hopefully find a mentor that understands that industry that can help them get some shortcuts so that their second business can succeed faster than the first. because acceleration means that the second one is faster than the first, and it should be at least twice as profitable, twice as much poop as the first one, right? Then your third business, your fourth business, and your fifth business, right? We're on the same language team here. So then we're going to bring in more and more businesses. And by the way, I'm at a point where I can start a business, and how fast can I manifest $1 million or $10 million? I'm doing a couple of moves right now this year that are an automatic $10 million next year for me. I will have never exhibited so little movement to so easily produce the outcome, because I'm learning and I'm getting better and my standards are increasing. And the more successful you are, the more you say yes or no. The more successful you are, the more you say no. Let me give you some real quick math on it, because I know some of you have businesses and some of you don't. So I want you to hear this. Whether you own a business or whether you work for somebody else, you are paid $1 per hour. True or false? I want you to write down this math. I'm going to give you an equation. I've never shared this equation before. It's part of a new book that I'm writing for next year. Let's talk first of all, if you are employed by someone else. You should make a list of all the things that you're asked to do, and you should assign $1 per hour wage of the top 10 activities that you do as an employee. As an employee, you have 5 to 10 things in your job description that you're responsible for, and there is $1 per hour associated with them. Now, you know what your salary average dollar per hour is. Let's just assume for a moment that you were being paid $40 an hour. But when you look at your 5 to 10 major activities, some of those activities are $10 an hour, some are $20 an hour, some are $80 an hour, and some are $150 an hour. Does that make sense? If you are employed by someone else, you need to find a way to say no to 20% of your yeses. And you must find a way to delegate to someone else, even if it comes out of your own pocket. Now, your employer may not like that. Your employer may not like you taking some of your salary and finding a way to employ other people or say no to certain things and hand things off. But here's what you're doing. If you're an employee and on average you're making $40 an hour, you should be saying no to everything that you're doing that is worth less than $20 an hour or less. You have to give that to somebody else to free up your time, because you'll create bigger results inside your company. When you create bigger results, that puts you in line for a what? A promotion, because people who get paid more are simply those that create more value. If you get paid $50,000 a year, you should be creating $200,000 a year of value for your company. If you go to your boss and say, I want a raise, pay me $100,000 a year, but you're still only creating $200,000 of value, are they going to give you a raise? No, but if you can find a way as a $50,000 a year employee to create $400,000 a year of value, ROI for your company, now you're entitled to a 50% raise, 100% raise in that situation. Does that make sense? Let's talk to entrepreneurs. If you're an entrepreneur, the math is inverted. 80% of what you say yes to, you must say no to. And the only way to do that is to either miss out on opportunity or delegate. There's only 2 options. You miss out or you delegate. What you should be doing is only saying yes. The other 20%, by the way, if you say no now to 80% of what you're doing, then it means that someone else is doing it, or simply you're passing up opportunities to make money. It means that you're holding out for a better what? A higher ROI. You're holding out for better opportunities. So now you need a standard of what? You need a standard of when you say yes. Here's when you say yes. As you do your math on what you're worth per hour as you do different activities, you should know what the number one highest paid activity is, yes? You only say yes to anything that is double of that number. Outsource 80% of what you do and outsource everything else, or just say no. And then when you say yes, it's only to the things that pay you double your current highest wage. Even if Logan only spends 2 hours in the entire week earning that amazing wage, he now can only say yes to something that is double that number. Now that might price you out of your industry, that might cause you to expand your empire industry, that might cause you to go into a new industry because you have higher standards. Does this make sense? Integrity is not about whether you're honest. It's not about honesty. It's about you being truthful to yourself to do what you say you're going to do. So, get to a 1,000% integrity. How do you do it? By saying no. So someone hits me up. I have literally, every week I have people that are like, Kris, I want to pay you $100,000 to teach me your social media strategies to my team. Would I say yes to that? Would I say yes to that? I can't afford to say yes to that. That is too little money. Does that make sense? I can't charge more because it's too much money for them. Does that make sense? So you tell me, what's the solution? There's only two.
Delegate it or miss out.
Delegate it or miss out. Those are the only two. So whatever your standard is, you have to separate from money if you want to have more of it. And when I mean separate from your old money. Meaning separate from the things that you used to do for old pay. Now, this catapulted for me when my very first year of working full-time, I made $18,000. And then the next year I made just shy of $50,000. And the next year I made $100,000. And the next year I made over $200,000. What am I doing to my numbers? Doubling them. Why double? Why not triple? Why double? Because the average human being can wrap their mind more easily and put faith into double than any other number if you're an entrepreneur. Double is not a stretch. But that was 10 years ago. So what happens when you keep doubling? I remember the first time it was doing $10 million in a year, and I'm like, you can't do that. $10 million, that's practically $1 million a month. That's too big of a number. What am I sharing? That's a limiting belief. All I have to figure out is how to create twice as much value, and then I'll get paid twice as much. So then I double it and I do $20 million. Was it harder? Yes or no? No, because the only thing that's hard is not what you're doing, it's saying yes and no. Saying yes and no isn't hard if you have a private rulebook of standards, and I've just given you a private rulebook of standards. You can be right now, Katie, at 1,000. You just have to say no to 1 out of 3 things that you're saying yes to, and you'll be at 1,000. And you'll either miss out on it, or you'll give it to somebody else to do. And what will cause you to decide whether you miss out or delegate is the amount of money that the opportunity brings you. If it's not double your highest pay rate, you're gonna say no or delegate it. If it's double your highest pay rate, then and only then you have permission to say yes. But you won't be overworked and overstressed because you've already given up 80% of your workload to other individuals. Because every entrepreneur does $15 an hour work and $15,000 an hour work. Now you just need standards to know when to say yes and when to say no. Does it make sense? Integrity with perfection is completely doable. Now all of a sudden, and I'm just gonna bring it full circle with a final thought. My wife and I fought the first several years of our marriage over cleaning habits. How the closet was supposed to look, when the dishes were supposed to be done, stupid stuff. Now I don't want to define my life by that problem, but I defined 5 years of it by that problem, and I wasted 5 years by defining something so pathetic and small as a problem that was not worthy of me or my time. So what I ended up doing was abandoning it, and I controlled what I could, and it meant that the parts of the house that I cared about were clean, and the parts that I cared less about were not. Because the parts that I cared about, who cleaned them? The person that cared. If you walked in my closet looked like Nordstrom's. You walk in my wife's side, it looks
Like Ross.
I'm not gonna get in trouble. So, but now watch this. I've made my time so available. Guess who now cleans my stuff? Guess who makes the food and guess who runs the kids around?
Not your wife.
Somebody else.
Not my wife. Because by the way, if I love my life and I love who I am and I value my time, and I claim to love my wife, then her time, is it more valuable than mine or less? It's the same. I value her time. So by the way, it's been years since I've done $100 an hour work, $50 an hour work, or $20 an hour work. But guess what? When you pay someone to clean your house, that is $15 to $20, $25 an hour work. So if I wouldn't do it, why would I want the person I love to do it? So I live in a world today, and now I've got Logan asking me and Katie asking me, well, Kris, who takes care of your logistics when you go private? And I'm at the point where, like, check this fascinating detail out. Before you guys got here, we went to Shelha, and it's an ecological swimming park. We'd been there before, we wanted to go there, and guess what came with the tickets? Free transportation. Let me tell you what free transportation means. Really slow bus that's going to stop by a dozen other places along the way, and a 50-minute drive becomes a 2-hour and 10-minute drive. Fortunately, something happened on the first pickup. The gentleman came to me and said, looks like you guys are missing a ticket. There's 7 of you, and I only have 6 tickets, so one of you has to get off. And at first I turned to him like, you're gonna kick a family member like off of the freaking free transport? I'll just buy a ticket. He says, you can't buy that here. You have to buy it there. And so I'm like, well, then I will get off. I'm not gonna strand my teacher, my kids, or my wife in Mexico. I'll just take a taxi. The taxi got there in 45 minutes. They got there way later. And I thought to myself, how did this happen in the first place? Who didn't double check the fact that we bought 7 tickets, but we're actually only paying 6 and issued 6? So that I missed that time with my family. And why the heck on earth am I spending an extra hour plus riding in a bus when I could be spending that time doing something more valuable with my family? Because you realize that when you're on the transport bus for long periods of time, there's only so much value you can experience, right? Right? It's hot, it's long, it's noisy, it's not ideal. I have a simple mathematical equation for everything. The person that I would pay to manage all of the logistics so that they were done correctly and lined up transportation, the first funny thing is I already have that person employed and I just didn't task the resource correctly. So that was on me. But second of all, if I needed to hire someone to do that, we're talking $25 an hour work. So why on earth am I still missing out? And I'm sharing this math for a reason. Because the world's gonna interpret this as snobby. The world's gonna interpret this as, that's what's so messed up about rich people. They don't understand that rich people understand the value of their time, and if you wanna live 1,000 lives, don't waste an hour of it doing something you don't wanna do. Live by conscious design. Live the life that you were meant to do. This math, if you follow it and you treat it like math and you commit yourself, you know your earnings. I will only say yes to anything that pays double what I'm doing. And anything less than Y, I outsource. If you follow that math, guess what will happen every single year to your earnings? What must happen? They will grow. And this is the one thing most people don't have. It grows. Because here's where most people are stuck. Work at a job. Nothing wrong with that, but working at a job isn't going to make you rich. True or false? It's not. Money solves for the resource to have options and possibility. Yes? So then you say, well, then it must be to be self-employed. And that means become an operator and work twice as hard without the security of a W-2. And where do you graduate from there? I am embarrassed that it took me too many years to find a mentor that finally said, you realize, Kris, that you're supposed to own a business, not operate it, right? And it was like, oh my gosh, are you serious? I never knew there was a standard. And all of a sudden I realized that the successful people own businesses. They don't own business. They own businesses, they own multiple, and because of their standards, wealth continues expanding. I have the easiest time making money because of the rules that I just shared with you. So I'm inviting you to figure out how to integrate the financial rules in your life, and I'm inviting you to play a game on integrity, to be perfect at it by evaluating your yeses and nos, and find joy in the perfection of being right every time you say yes and follow through, and find joy in saying no and walking away from commitments that you were gonna slough on anyway.